Welcome to the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum for Ventura County Court Judge, Superior Court Judge. I'm League of Women Voter member Cheryl Collert, and I will be the moderator for this evening's forum. Tonight's forum will include all four of the candidates who are seeking this office. I want you to know that the questions for tonight's forum have been submitted by the viewers and by people who registered for this forum. Each candidate is going to have the opportunity to answer each question, and there will be time for both opening and closing statements. The order of the candidates to respond for their questions has been randomly selected, and we want you to know that the forum is being videotaped and will be posted on the League's website about 24 to 48 hours following this evening. Before we start, and as our attendees are gathering with us on this Zoom link, I'd like to introduce Kathy Morgan. She co-leads our voter services and will tell you a little bit more about the nonpartisan work that the League does. Kathy?
Thank you, Cheryl. Welcome and good evening. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization committed to providing voters with factual, non-biased information, and as such does not support a particular candidate or political party. The League today continues with the mission of empowering voters and defending democracy by registering voters, providing information about the candidates and the issues, and getting out the vote, as well as supporting fair and transparent elections. The candidate forums are an opportunity for voters to hear from the various candidates regarding the issues that affect our communities and to get the information they need to make an informed choice when they vote. We are glad that you are here tonight to hear from our candidates. We hope that you get the information that you need to make an informed choice. And at this time, I would like to turn it back to our moderator, Cheryl Collert. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. At this time, we would like to begin with opening statements from each of our candidates, and we will start with John McBride. Mr. McBride, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for having us. Just want to tell everyone a little bit about my background and my experience. I was born and raised right here in Ventura with a long family history of ties to the county. My great-great-grandparents brought the family to Ojai, or Nordhoff as it was then known, over 130 years ago, and my great-great-grandfather opened his harness shop there. My family has many ties to the law and to law enforcement. My cousin Bob Clark served as Ventura County's 11th sheriff. My cousin Bill Clark served as a Superior Court judge prior to his elevation to the Supreme Court. 2 of my brothers are police officers. One's a retired chief. 2 of my nieces are police officers. My brother-in-law is a retired probation officer, and we have a number of attorneys in the family as well. As former Commissioner William Redmond stated in his endorsement of me, I have a diverse legal background. I received my law degree in 1993 from the George Washington University Law School in Washington, D.C. Since that time, I've handled both criminal matters and a wide variety of civil matters, including business disputes, employment matters, family law adoptions, guardianships, real estate, probate, and more. I've appeared in trial courts in Ventura, Los Angeles, and Kern counties. I've also appeared in trial courts in the District of Columbia and Maryland. I've appeared before the California Court of Appeal, where I won a full reversal of 2 trial court rulings. I've also appeared in federal courts and state and federal regulatory agencies. I'm a former adjunct professor of legal research at the Ventura College of Law, and I coached and judged mock trial and moot court teams at the George Washington University Law School. I'm firmly committed to public safety and the fair and impartial administration of justice. If I'm elected judge, my goal will be to make sure that every person that walks out of my courtroom feels and understands that they had a full hearing, that their argument and evidence was fairly considered, and that I make the best decision I can, considering the evidence and the law. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next candidate to speak will be Mike Malik. And let me get you unmuted here. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Shakespeare in Hamlet wrote, "To thine own self be true," and the origins of mind your own business are lost in antiquity. But both of them, I think, are applicable tonight. I make no apologies for my background, for supporting progressive causes, for advocating for the poor, for advocating for women, for promoting labor, and trying to improve the justice system as it exists. You can look at John Kennedy's speech where he speaks about, I see things, some people see things as they are. I ask why things can't be the way that they could be. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And I'm running because I'm distraught at some of the changes that have taken place in the public perception of the law. There is less of a respect, I believe. There's disputes. One side thinks the law is too liberal. The other side thinks it's not stern enough. And it's a consensus of the people, which is what the framers of the Constitution tried to establish, where we all, as a community, accept the same judgments and we promote the same good. We hope that our justice system will be responsive to all of us as a whole instead of favoring one particular class over another. I worry that the court system, as it's presently viewed, is going to be adversely affected to the point that justice could be denied to whole classes of people. And that's something I fought against for my entire life. I'm a working person. I was born in Los Angeles. My family was in the motion picture industry. After my father died, when I was a freshman and I were in college, there were 3 children at home, and my mother put all our children through college. 3 of us have advanced degrees. In addition to law, I have a degree in communications, and I hope to use that on the bench to communicate not only effectively with the litigants who come before me or the defendants who come before me, but also to take that out into the community, because I think judges have a responsibility to be teachers as well as deciders. And that is an equally important function. I think a judge should be out of the community the same way that jurors are selected out of the community. They should be representative of the community as a whole and share its values. And some of the changes that are being urged on our legal system are clearly opposed by the majority of the citizens. And there's a problem there when there's a disconnect between justice and between what the people believe in, and that's something that's becoming more and more apparent. I've practiced law, like John, in many areas. If you ask me what my specialty was, since I've done torts, contracts, antitrust, high-tech computer law, poverty law.
We're going to have to stop you there and let you tell us more later on.
Oh, I'm
Thank
over
you.
time. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our next candidate to speak will be Edward. Let me get you here. Please go ahead, Edward.
Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum, and thank you to all who are present to discuss this very important election. I'm Edward Ted Andrews. I'm a Senior Deputy District Attorney in the Ventura County District Attorney's Office, and I work on behalf of our victims and our community in what's called the Sexual Assault Unit, where I prosecute some of the grimmest and most troubling crimes in our county. I also work in important community outreach. I teach a civics class to 5th graders, something I've done since 2018. I work after hours conducting trainings for law enforcement, and I help train victim advocacy and other community organizations. As a Senior Deputy District Attorney, I have successfully prosecuted offenders who committed first-degree murder, child molestation, and human trafficking. Outside of the courthouse, I volunteer through community groups and in schools. It's important to note, I grew up working, the single child of a single mother helping my mom run her jewelry stand, before I was fortunate enough to receive scholarships to Harvard and UCLA Law. I entered the law as an opportunity to serve, and when I was in the private sector, I helped through pro bono or volunteer work, helping families finalize adoptions, helping Holocaust survivors obtain reparations, and helping those who weren't able to afford representation in civil lawsuits before I was able to join the district attorney's office. I've handled dozens of jury trials successfully at the district attorney's office, from first-degree murder to embezzlement from a Little League. And I'm running for judge because we need a fresh perspective in the court. I care deeply about Ventura County. Not only have I tried dozens of jury trials and worked with community members, this is where my wife and I are raising our family. We deserve judges who will follow the law, care about victims, and will treat everyone with respect. I've talked with voters across the county about why I'm running for judge, and they say how nice it is to have information about this race. And I want to thank the League again for hosting this forum, because this is an important race. It's an important race because this is our opportunity as a county to choose a new judge for the Superior Court. I am endorsed by civic leaders and diverse organizations across the county. I am endorsed by District Attorney Eric Nazarenko, who I worked beside before he elevated to the office of District Attorney, and who has seen my work ethic. I was hired by retired District Attorney Gregory Totten, who has also endorsed me. I'm also endorsed by retired District Attorney Michael Bradbury and retired Sheriff Jeff Dean. Alongside those endorsements from our justice and law enforcement community, I'm endorsed by Congresswoman Julia Brownley and Assembly Members Steve Bennett and Jackie Irwin. I recognize how difficult it is to access the courts, how frustrating and inefficient it can be for everyone who comes before them. I am Ted Andrews. I'm going to work to make the courts more efficient for all. I'm running for judge and ask for your vote.
Thank you. And our next candidate will be Julia. Please go ahead. Opening
Thank you.
comments.
Thank you. I would also like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum and making the information available to the public. Not very many people know about judicial elections, and so I'd like to thank the League for putting out the information. I do believe that Ventura County deserves experienced and proven judicial officers. I do have that extensive judicial experience. I am a current Ventura County Superior Court Commissioner, which means I am a current sitting judicial officer. I was appointed by the Ventura County Superior Court judges in 2019. I preside over felony and misdemeanor jury trials, civil, probate, traffic, juvenile cases every day. I also was a Ventura County Deputy District Attorney for nearly 20 years. I have graduated from the B.E. Whitkin Judicial College, New Judges Orientation. I am an adjunct professor of evidence at Ventura College of Law. I have 25 years of courtroom experience in Ventura County. I am also very humbled to be endorsed by current and retired Ventura County Superior Court judges, many local elected officials, attorneys, and business leaders throughout Ventura County and throughout the state who trust my demonstrated experience, not only in the courtroom, but in the community. I am a proud member of the Women Lawyers of Ventura County. I have a strong record on public safety. I am honored to be endorsed by current and local law enforcement groups like Oxnard Peace Officers Association and the National Latino Peace Officers Association. As a single mother of 3, I've always had to work hard and make difficult decisions delivered delicately. And likewise, as a Ventura County Superior Court Commissioner, I hear cases every day making decisions based on fairness, compassion, and personal accountability. I believe Ventura County deserves hardworking, fair, respected Ventura County Superior Court judges with experience who are battle-tested, who already know the job. I am a lifelong Ventura County resident. I'm committed to continuing my public service to our community as your Ventura County Superior Court judge, and ask humbly for your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we're ready to start our first questions, and we will be starting with Edward. And the question that we have for you to start with is, would you please talk to us about how you think the courts can better address the mental health crisis in Ventura County? Are there changes that would be needed? And let me get you started on that question. Ed, go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Collard. So with respect to mental health, this is one of the most significant challenges that's facing the court right now. It used to be we had what was referred to as a drug court model where there were very severe penalties for crimes, and that was used to essentially force folks towards a rehabilitative process. But we don't have that situation anymore. And instead, what we need to focus on is getting defendants who have mental health problems into situations where they can get effective rehabilitation quickly. To share a specific example, I had a case involving a domestic violence defendant who had hit her father, but she had mental health issues. And when I talked to her dad, all he wanted for her was treatment, but he didn't want her to just get cycled back out on what's referred to as CTS, or credit for time served. So I reached out to the defense and we worked together to get her into a treatment program that was in a residential treatment program. But it took us 50 days of her staying in jail to do that. And if she had been released, then she would have gone back to drug use and cycled back in. The courts need to work better with the county. I was at the State of the Region event last year. I didn't see anyone from the courts there, but the courts rely on the mental health infrastructure, and the mental health infrastructure relies on the courts. We need to do a better job getting defendants who have mental health issues into some kind of treatment program as quickly and expeditiously as possible. Otherwise, potentially we're going to see situations where they offend in a way where there's a strike crime or a violent crime, and there's really kind of no coming back. So that's my view. It's really critical the courts work with the county and work to help people get into rehabilitative programs as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. The next candidate to discuss that will be John. You're up on this one, and let us know what your thoughts are on that issue of mental health.
I agree largely with what Ted just said. I think it's a waste of everybody's time and a danger to the community, to potential victims, and to those that suffer mental illness themselves, not to get them into treatment. And just put them into jail does nothing to help with them with the mental problems that they're facing. So the courts need to really focus on getting people that are mentally ill into a treatment program to stop the cycle of them getting out, getting on drugs, committing another crime. And the judges can really help with that by pulling both the prosecution and the defense together and working with them to try and move people quickly out of jail, where we're often already overcrowded. We don't need to be housing people that should be in treatment, and getting people into treatment that's appropriate, that will help prevent future crime as well. Thank you.
Thank you. The next up on this question will be Julia. So again, how do you think the courts would better serve the mentally ill, and how we would address that? Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think that everybody agrees that treatment is really the key, and that in most circumstances, the sheriff who runs the jail is not equipped in general and not trained to deal with some of the issues that that are present with people who struggle with mental health challenges. But the issue is not necessarily that the courts don't want to do that. When I was a district attorney, the last 4 years of my time, I was in the elder abuse assignment, which is in large part dealing with mental health issues, defendants that are mentally ill. And the issue is not that we don't want to get them treated. The issue is resources. There aren't any treatment places available. Many of them suffer from dual diagnosis issues, a combination of mental health and drug addiction, and there are simply no beds available. So to just say that we need treatment is good and true, but the bottom line is there are no beds available. So what we really need is resources and help to make that happen, and we need more facilities to get them the treatment that they need so that they can rehabilitate and be in a safe environment where that can happen.
Thank you. And Mike, we're up with you now on that question of how to work with our mentally ill folks in the courts.
Well, I think part of the problem here is, that, as Julia said, is resources, and it's also identification of people that have mental illness. I took a course at UCLA Neuropsych Institute to try and better understand this issue myself. And as what I see is the courts rely on really little expertise, in my opinion. In Orange County, for example, I've addressed their drug court. They have a board of approximately 20 to 30 people who will advise the judge about latest developments in mental health. Most counties, there is no supervision of the rehab facilities. You go in and you find, you check back with the court, and you give the clerk a certificate or a statement that you've been here, there, or anywhere, and that satisfies the court's requirements. I don't think that's enough. I think we need to effectively monitor the facilities that the people go to. We need more professional advice, telling people, advising the courts about who and who shouldn't receive mental health services. I think the barriers are too high to receive those services, and unfortunately, although there are good-hearted district attorneys like Ted who will take an interest in a person, there are far too many cases where an individual is just shuffled along, and we wind up with the same cycle once again, and maybe we feel better about doing something, but it's mere lip service. I think you could fund these types of programs with bond issues. We could be creative, and the courts are able to write grant proposals. I think it would be an ideally suited topic for some of the large foundations that fund research in this particular area. And I would be pleased to be part of any grant proposal to fund the programs that we so desperately need, not just in Ventura, but throughout the state. 1 in 10 people in the state of California is addicted to one thing or another. The people who are incarcerated, 20%.
We need to stop you at that point. Thank you. However, stay tuned here, Mike. You're up for our next question.
Good. Okay.
And that question is another one from the public in terms of what's your position on bail? Would you support alternative sentences and ways to keep folks out of jail and hopefully so they don't learn the bad things that go on with the inmates? Interesting question. So again, what's your position on bail? We'll start with Mike.
All right. I think that bail is inherently discriminatory because those people that are able to afford it they can go home, they can meet with their attorney at leisure. If you don't have the money and you're locked up preparing for your trial or facing charges, it's much more difficult to do it behind bars. I agree with the decision to curtail or cut away a bail because of its inherent inequity. I also think that it was an interesting aspect of that question is what happens to people in prisons. I've probably been to 15, maybe 20 prisons in the time I've been a defense attorney. And it does absolutely no good, in my opinion, to rehabilitate people. They should change the name of the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, and maybe it should be the Department in Need of Rehabilitation, because we are missing the opportunity within our penal institutions to help people that could be salvaged, who don't really need to be in jail, who could live productive and sane lives as citizens. So I would like to see much more alternate sentencing. I'd like to see us delve more deeply into mental health issues and try and ascertain why 20% of people who are in prison right now have mental illness, and that's too much to just ignore it and pretend it's not there.
Thank you. Next on that question is Julia. Would you please get you going here? Thank you.
Well, bail is a complicated issue. It is an issue that is in the Constitution. It's in the case law. It is a unique issue to each individual So I don't know that I could tell you as a sitting judicial officer what my position is on bail. It's not entirely appropriate to comment on whether I think bail is appropriate across the board, because I can't really comment on whether or not bail would be appropriate for this person or that person. It's a very individualized analysis. And the law on bail is actually quite complicated. And so it would not be appropriate to say across the board, this person should get bail, but this person shouldn't have bail. And that's not appropriate for me to say because it's individual and it requires an individual analysis each time.
Thank you. Our next candidate to discuss the bail question is John McBride. Please go ahead, John.
Thank you. I agree with Julia that it's a very individualized matter, and I think that the judge is in the best position to determine what the bail should be. The judge is there to hear the evidence, the argument from the prosecutor and from the defense to argue how much bail may be set. And I understand the argument that Mike made about bail being discriminatory, but again, the judge is in the position to make the decision and counteract whatever discrimination there might be in the bail system. The judge can set the, amongst many factors, can set the bail based in part on the financial ability of the defendant, the safety of the community, the safety of the victim, and so forth. In terms of alternative sentencing, I think that unfortunately our prisons are very overcrowded right now. And so it would be good to find alternative sentences for defendants where that's appropriate. Again, I think the overarching consideration should be the safety and privacy of the victim, the severity of the crime, and the safety and privacy or the safety of the community at large. And I will leave it with that. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next candidate, Ed, would you please, Edward, please give us your comments on that topic as well?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ms. Collard. So in terms of bail, the big shift that happened a few years ago was the In re Humphrey decision from the Supreme Court. Now, Julia is absolutely right that we shouldn't get into, as judicial candidates, how we would rule in particular cases. But the standard now essentially is a detention standard, where a judge needs to make a decision about whether someone is a danger to society and they need to be detained. They need to be kept in jail because of a danger that they essentially present in advance of a case being tried. So that's the decision a judge needs to make, and we need judges that are going to be willing to follow the law, listen to victims, and follow the California Constitution, which provides for victims' rights. In terms of alternative sentencing, and I think that often will go to mental health issues, and I'm certainly open to that. I think the courts often lean a little too much on the public defender and other entities to provide information about mental health programs. And to return to one of the earlier points about whether the sheriff is equipped to handle mental health, the sheriff's department just built a new facility for mental health in its exterior jail facility, which is designed to work in a really compassionate and forward way with offenders with mental health issues. So I'm very open to the idea of alternate sentences that deal with issues like that. With respect to bail, I mean, the main thing is whether someone presents a danger to society, danger to victims. That's the standard. And we just need judges who are going to follow the law. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, we're going to be starting with Julia, and maybe you can explain to our audience what kinds of cases a Superior Court judge hears. Tell us a little bit more about how we would be able to know that you're a fair judge and that you will base those decisions on law, not on partisan bias. This is a nonpartisan office that you hold. So tell us a little bit about what the role of the Superior Court judge is and the kinds of cases that you will be hearing. And again, we'll be starting with Julia on this one.
Okay. Well, a Superior Court judge can hear any type of case in the criminal arena, misdemeanor cases, felony cases. Superior Court judge can also hear civil cases where people sue other people for money. And we can be assigned in Ventura County to any of those divisions. We can also be assigned to family law cases. We hear family law cases. So any of those types of cases, it depends on where the needs are, and it depends on where the presiding judge decides that the needs of the court are and where our particular talents will be best utilized and most useful, and the needs of the court at that current time. In Ventura County, we rotate our assignments occasionally. Some people stay in the same assignments for a while, depending on what that assignment is, and some people rotate out. But any types of those cases are up for grabs as a Superior Court judge.
Thank you. Next, Edward, would you respond to that question to tell us a little bit about what the judge hears as a Superior Court judge? Sorry. I think we're ready for you, Edward. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. So there are 5 divisions in the Superior Court. There's the criminal division, which is the largest division, then civil and family law. Civil is what we think of as lawsuits, like personal injury or like workers' compensation claims, things of that nature. And then juvenile and probate, which is one of the smaller departments. I am currently assigned to a criminal assignment. I'm in our sexual assault unit. I prosecute very serious crimes, primarily against women, children, other vulnerable victims, the elderly. So that's my current assignment. Before that, I had 5 years in the private sector in what's referred to as civil law. So handling large tort cases, insurance litigation, litigation over real estate contracts, things of that nature. So I'm well versed and happy to dive into a pile of papers. That's often what's happening in a civil assignment. In terms of family law assignments, the thing that I really draw on there is when I used to work in what's called adoption day, where you would help families. I would help families who are trying to adopt kids, often their grandkids or another family member, finalize forms to do that and complete the adoption procedure. So I'm versed in those areas. I'm ready to go in all of them. In terms of criminal, I've handled very, very serious cases at very high levels. I handled, for example, a case last year that went to trial with a defendant who had molested many, many girls in the South Oxnard area. And ultimately, he was convicted. He was sentenced to 136 years to life. So those are the kinds of decisions I'm comfortable making. I'm also comfortable diving into complex litigation and getting it done there. So I think that's kind of a broad overview of the court and my ability to handle that work. Thank you.
Next on this question will be Mike. And again, what kinds of cases will the Superior Court judges be hearing? And how do you assure the voters that you would, if elected, you would be making good decisions, unbiased decisions?
Well, I've handled most areas. If you ask me what my specialty was, I'd say complexities. I decided long ago when I was a young lawyer that I didn't want to be pigeonholed in this area or that area or do one or two things with my career. I wanted to be diverse, and it suited my intellectual curiosity to do that. So I've been in most areas of the law, most courts, probate, family law, civil law, criminal law, and I've had an opportunity to, observe how justice is administered. And there is really a great difference between personalities of bench officers. And you take the sum of your background with you when you sit down on the bench. I decided at an early age I wanted to be helpful to people, so I joined a Spanish missionary order that lasted about till I started in college. And Loyola had merged with Marymount at that time. But the intuition was there, the willingness was there to be of service to people. And judges facilitate lawyers' good deeds. They facilitate the instrumentation by which we make society better, by which we make individuals better. And I think that's one of the main purposes of the justice system, is to improve life for everyone, including those who most need it.
Very good. Thank you. And the last on this question will be John. We'll get you going here so that you can address that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. I think it's sad that in today's society, the views of the court, or the society's views of the court, is waning. And the courts seem to be losing respect. I think it's extremely important, as I've said to people before, unless you're a career criminal or a lawyer, your one day in court may be your one day in court your entire life. And I've seen too many cases where one side or the other walks out of the courtroom feeling like the judge had dismissed them out of hand, didn't really listen to them, didn't feel like they got a fair shake. And I'm not going to say I don't have my personal biases. Everybody has their personal biases, but it's an important part of the judge to protect the impartiality of the court and not let those personal biases come in. So my goal it would be that everybody that comes into the courthouse, that came into my courtroom, that I would listen patiently to arguments on both sides, and that I would apply the law fairly and impartially to the case and come up with a decision that I thought was the fairest decision I could reach. I want people to walk out of the courtroom feeling like they got a fair shake, that they were listened to, they were fairly considered, and that the courts respect the people and they should respect the courts. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, I think, is a good one for particularly from those of us at the League who've often worked in the voting, and we often hear the question, why are we voting for all these judges? How does this affect our lives? Why do we vote for the judges? So let's pose that question to all of you. We're going to start with John. What should the voters know? Why should they care about voting for a Superior Court judge?
Well, I think it's important to have a variety of people sitting on the bench in the court. So the people should be looking at trying to maintain a balanced bench. You want to look at the experience of the judge or the potential judge, and you want to look at their personality and see if you feel that they're going to be fair and impartial. It's interesting, in California, our judicial candidates are strictly nonpartisan. In certain other states, they're not. In some states, they actually run on a party line and are not impartial, which makes for an interesting situation. But here, we're supposed to be entirely impartial. We're supposed to be fair, and people should be considering us for that, considering our experience, and trying to maintain a balance on the bench between criminal lawyers and civil lawyers. And you want to maintain a breadth of experience and a breadth of knowledge so that any case that comes up before the court can be fairly handled.
Thank you. Same question to Mike. Why should the voters care about the Superior Court judge?
Well, justice is on the ground. That's where it takes place, at the appellate. More removal from the people the farther up you go, but on everyday decisions affect the lives of individuals, much more dramatically than what happens farther up the line. My background, I've been honored by many organizations. San Diego gave me a key. The state has honored me. The city of Los Angeles has honored me. I've worked really tirelessly to try and benefit the entire community. I agree, it's not a political situation. You have to put aside whatever your beliefs are when you sit down on the bench. And you're right, people must trust you. And I think I've proven that I earned that.
Thank you. And the last on this one will be Julia. Your comments, please. Julia?
Yes.
Yes.
So why should people care about voting for judges? It's one of those things, right? You don't really know that you might need it until you need it. And I think it's critically important to have a fair cross-section of the community, representative of the community as our judges, who have a variety of perspectives and bring different perspectives to the bench, who can be fair and impartial. And it's critically important to maintain the integrity of the judicial system so that, like the others have said, everybody knows that they are treated fairly, because that is really in the canons of judicial ethics of the utmost importance, that people believe that they are treated fairly when they walk into the courtroom. That's the reason why we can't, as candidates, talk about certain issues. We're not allowed to form or express opinions on certain things, because it's not fair if people think that we've already made up our minds when they walk into our courtroom. So we have to be completely unbiased, and so that people know they are heard when they come into our courtroom. And it takes a skill set, it takes training to actually do that. It takes a while to move from advocate to unbiased neutrality. So it's important. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is,
So
we'll get in.
I don't think Ted had an opportunity to speak on that question.
I'm sorry. Let's get to Ted. Thank you. Let's see. I'm sorry. There we go.
completely fine.
There we go.
I think it's a really interesting question, right? Why are we electing judges? We have a hybrid system where judges can be elected or judges can be appointed. I have not sought appointment. I don't know if anyone else of the candidates has. I found out that there would be an open seat just after finishing a very serious sexual assault trial. I talked to my wife and I talked to my boss, and they both endorsed me, so I got started. In California, we elect judges and also appoint them. In going out and talking to voters, in learning more about people's perspectives on the court, the thing that I learned the most was that voters in Ventura County are hungry for better efficiencies in the court for victims and witnesses and jurors. And also everyone in Ventura County wants better access to justice. Whether it's a person who's living in Simi Valley or Thousand Oaks, who has to drive all the way to Ventura to handle basic matters, or whether it's working class families who have a difficult time coming to court on various matters. As an example of that, I grew up in a working family, helping my mom run a jewelry stand and ultimately running the jewelry stand while she had a minimum wage job. And I'm proud to be endorsed by people with the same perspective, such as organizations like SEIU 721, Carpenters Union, Laborers Union, and the Union of Operating Engineers. Thank you.
All right, well, let's move on to another question. I think each of you have expressed a certain amount of passion and interest for the law, and that's a question that was addressed to us. So the question, we'll start with Ed, and the question is, what are you most passionate about in being a judge, and what are important qualities for the Superior Court judge to have, and how do you bring those and exemplify those? So it's several pieces there, but let us know a little bit more about what's really driving your passion for this work that you might be elected to do. And again, in this series, we will start with Ed.
Thank you, Ms. Collard. With respect to my passion for being a judge, well, I guess let's start with the qualities for a judge. A judge needs to be someone who is willing to research the law and dive into it. California has a complex legal system, is willing to follow the law and make a decision after hearing both parties. I echo what John said earlier, and to expand on it, I think a critical aspect of being a judge is treating everyone who comes before you with dignity and with respect. That is absolutely critical. And part of that also is judicial temperament. being civil with the attorneys, being pleasant, listening, and treating people respectfully. The thing I am most passionate about as a judge, beyond the ability to serve in the public trust, as essentially the basic unit of justice in the county, that's what the Superior Court is. The thing I am passionate about is the opportunity to work with the community, both to have a dialogue about what the court does and what the court can do, how it can work with other agencies, and also just generally. My focus on community involvement is something that stems from the work I do teaching civics to fifth graders in elementary school. That's something I've done since 2018, and working with other community groups to see how we can better improve things. The court is part of Ventura County. It needs to work with Ventura County. We're one county, and that kind of community involvement is really what drives me, both in the work I do in sexual assault, protecting the most vulnerable members of our county, and then also the work that I do as a volunteer basis in schools, through my church, through other activities. So that's what I'm looking forward to having as an aspect and something that I think needs to be added to the court. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on that question will be John. What makes you passionate about being a judge and the important qualities for being in that position?
Thank you. As I said before, I was born and raised here in Ventura. Ventura County is a part of me. It has built who I am, and I want to give back to the county. And I want to help the county help everybody in the county know that they get a fair shot when they go into the court. As Ted just said, treating everybody that comes in with dignity and respect, I think should be, job one of the judge. Making a decision based on the law is it's there as well. I love legal research. That's why I actually taught legal research at the Ventura College of Law. And I've coached and judged both mock trial and moot court teams at the George Washington University Law School. So I think it's very important to have the right temperament, to have the legal knowledge, the ability to find quickly the answers to questions that you don't know, because nobody can sit on the bench and know the answer to everything right off the top of his head. He needs to be able to know where to go find that answer, and sometimes find it very, very quickly. Temperament in terms of how he treats not only the participants, but the lawyers as well. Actually, it was the very first court appearance I had. I was still a law student, and the case before me, the judge yelled so severely at one of the attorneys that it brought her to tears. And I was mortified. I thought the gallery was filled. I thought, these people see this in the court, and that's what they're going to walk out thinking of the court. And that's not how a judge should act. A judge should treat everybody with dignity, respect, and impartiality. Thank you.
Thank you. Julia, you're next on this question. Sorry. Let me get you started. Let me get you started again. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, what I'm most passionate about, I actually wanted to be a judge, have wanted to be a judge since I was in 8th grade. I had an 8th grade English teacher who used to have debates, and I knew at that time that this is what I wanted to do. So I have had a passion for the law and actually the process for a very, very long time. So everything I've done has been geared towards that. I've been fortunate enough to get that job right now as a sitting judicial officer. And I have found that giving back in that capacity has been very rewarding. I have been involved in mock trial at the county level for 23 years. I've coached, I've judged mock trial, the county competition, for years. I have been guest speakers for Project Lead for many years. I've taught project lead for many years. The kids come into my courtroom all the time to learn about the courtroom process and ask all kinds of questions. And it's incredibly rewarding to teach them about the process. It's very important to learn judicial temperament because once you become a judicial officer, you know that you actually will hardly ever get in trouble for an incorrect legal ruling. What you will get in trouble for is your temperament if it's off. So it takes a while to get that correct, and it's incredibly important. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last candidate on this question is Mike. Would you please tell us about what you're passionate about in being a judge?
Well, I'm passionate about access. I'm passionate about equality. In the discussion we had about bail, I'm against discriminatory bail, and there are reforms being made in that system. It is complicated. I think the middle class has been getting a kind of a poor shake on this access to the court because they're priced out in many cases from the legal system. They can't afford to hire a lawyer. I mean, this is one of the things I hear most often. People will, if I go visit a community, they'll come, a number of people, and they'll ask questions. Well, what about this? What about that? I can't get a lawyer. The lawyer wants this money. The day of trial, the lawyer said, no, put this in my bank account. Otherwise, I can't appear for you. And over again, it's a question of access. In England and certain European countries, you can just write your complaint on your computer at home, almost in your own words. The court will then take that document, it'll send it to a defendant who does the same thing and replies within a certain amount of time. And occasionally you'll have a result within 24 to 48 hours. And we could implement something like that here. People could stay in their homes, one of the candidates mentioned. They don't have to drive a great distance to a courthouse. We'd save money by not having to have smaller issues raised in our courts. I think it's efficient. It promotes justice, and it brings access to people who are not getting it right now. And that's one reason why they think the courts are unfair, why they're not getting a fair shake from the justice system. So that's what I'm passionate about, is equal access to everybody. From that follows fairness. It is a fairness issue.
Very good. Thank you. And that will move us into our next round of questions. We had questions about moving the court to modern times. Would you support public online access to case documents as the federal courts do? Would there be webcasts of court sessions? So what are some of your thoughts on those kinds of changes and expanded access of the public to the justice system? And Mike, we start with you on this question.
All right. Well, this is an easy one for me because my background is communications and entertainment. I've made informational documentaries for scientific organizations. I've made them for Hispanics por la Raza. And I think that really every proceeding, unless it involves a sensitive matter, sexual cases, for example, or psychiatric cases, contested family law cases, it should be televised. I think there should be an opportunity for people to see their courts in action. The seating is limited in the courtrooms, and it is a distance. There's inconvenience to come view, and I think people would welcome that. And I think all case documents, except those which are sensitive, should be available online to the general public. And if they're misused, then there should be criminal statutes enacted which protect the privacy of individuals or protect against misuse of whatever particular kind devious minds might devise.
Very good. Julia, you're up on this for the next one for that answer. Unmuted. There you are. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes. Our court actually is moving into a more digital age. We have recently launched in our civil division this past year in 2023 our e-court system, which is a paperless system. to facilitate e-filing and more access to some of the court records that we have. In criminal, more specifically, although that system is a little less doable in some ways, but there is a system actually in 2019 that we have. Ventura County was a pilot program for the system called ATP, Ability to Pay, for some of the traffic matters. And I was involved in the Judicial Council planning of that program. It's a system designed for online access to requests for fine reductions, essentially people who don't want to come to court and just want to handle their tickets without coming to court and request a fine reduction. I made it available to the entire public and not just the small segment of people that it was going to be available to, which means that I get to rule on hundreds and hundreds of petitions every day, which I do, which is fine, but it's access. So I do support that. Thank
Very
you.
good. And John, your opportunity to answer this question for us.
Thank you. Well, I actually paid my way through college as a computer programmer. And so I have some experience with technology, and I'm a firm supporter of technology. And I don't see any reason why we can't expand access and give people access to more and more things online. I have to say, even as a lawyer, it's, I found it extremely useful to be able to go online to find things like tentative rulings, to find the docket, register of actions when I need to look up what's gone on in a case, rather than go all the way over to the courthouse and have the file pulled, or to go all the way over to the courthouse to have the file pulled and find out it's in storage, and so you have to come back the next day to see it. So I'm a firm believer in technology and making that available. In terms of televising, if the Senate and the Congress can do it, I think the courts can do it as well. And there are cases where it would be inappropriate, where due to privacy concerns, it's not appropriate to have it publicized. But in cases where there are no privacy concerns, then where the courtroom would otherwise be open to the public, then yes, I think it should be televised. So, thank you.
Thank you. And now, Edward, if you would give us your response to that. The role.
Thank you so much. So first off, in terms of access to the file, access to the docket and papers in the file, I completely support an electronic system for that. That's something that's very standardized in the federal courts and in other state level courts. I think that's a wonderful approach. In terms of televising everything in the courtroom or allowing sort of unlimited Zoom style appearances, there are just some concerns there, especially when you have criminal trials that involve things like gang offenses, or you also have cases where there's sexual abuse, where either the victim is seeking some level of anonymity, or there's a concern that someone might be listening in who is then going to be testifying or doing something based on the testimony, and you don't know who they are because you can't tell who they are in the gallery. I think that is a concern. In terms of just turning on the cameras and unlimited Zoom, I think that there are some cautions that need to be taken there. I think what I support as a better approach, although I'm open to all of this in terms of conversation, but what I support as a better approach is we have a perfectly good courthouse in Simi Valley. All it's staffed with is half a commissioner. We could have judges there and courtrooms that are functioning there with family law, civil law, and criminal law. I appeared there as my first appearance in Ventura County. It's a lovely courthouse. And in terms of other areas of the county that have difficulty with accessing the main courthouse in Ventura, we have thought leaders like, Diane McKay did amazing things with the community college district in this regard. I'm sure that, putting our heads together, we can find ways to access the courts in a better way, at a distance rather than just turning on the cameras. That is something I'm concerned about for the reasons I discussed.
Very good. All right, our our next question is going to start with Julia. The question is about what can be done to ease the shortage of court reporters? So this sounds like a question from people that you work closely with. Tell us how to deal with that. And again, we will start with Julia on this question, please.
Well, I wish I had the answer to that, right? If I did, we'd be sitting pretty. That's a layered problem that I don't know that we have the answer to. The schools have been slowly closing, and there have been less and less graduates, less and less people who have been passing the tests, and more people going to the private sector. And so I am not sure how to solve that problem. I wish that we could. We have tried in a lot of different ways. We love our court reporters, and they provide excellent records for us. They help control the courtroom when people are talking over each other. And when we have a recording, it's sometimes difficult, but because the judicial officer doesn't always remember to tell counsel, slow down, or please don't talk over each other, or don't talk over the witness, or something like that. But the court reporter is another set of ears that does, and is incredibly helpful. So I don't know. If anybody has any great ideas, we are open to them, because we've tried. They're an amazing asset, and we wish more people would learn the skill. It's invaluable.
Thank you. All right, Edward, it's your turn to try and answer this difficult question. How do we ease the shortage of court reporters?
Actually, I think you unmuted me by accident.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at Edward.
Thank you so much, Ms. Collard. In terms of, I cannot express the admiration I have for court reporters. So during the pandemic shutdown, when the access to the courts was greatly restricted, we still had to do trials, because obviously defendants and victims and the people have speedy trial rights. So I was in trial in very serious domestic violence battery trials during COVID, during the pandemic shutdown, and the court reporter was right there. Court reporters provide an amazing service, because that transcript is very, very valuable. Court reporters are taking things down as they are, and you need that transcript later for appeals, and then sometimes also for other hearings. It's a much better chronicle of a case than a recording where people are talking over each other, sometimes muffled, and otherwise recordings are really difficult to use later on, and transcripts from recordings can also be very difficult to use. My understanding is the courts received an opportunity for a grant, and I think the issue with court reporting going forward probably can be addressed by the court partnering and providing a long-term promise about how it's going to be using court reporters. That's going to be really critical, because people are not entering court reporting because they're concerned about what the future of it's going to be. Court reporting is an amazing service. It's not going to get supplanted by AI anytime soon. We need it. We need to make that promise. This is something I've discussed. I'm endorsed by SEIU 721 along with others, and this is something that I've discussed extensively with them, because court reporting is a critical part of the court, and we need more court reporters. We need them, we need them right now, and we need to figure out a clever way to do it, because otherwise we're competing with civil. Thank you very much.
And Mike, if you would respond to that question about the need for court reporters.
Well, yes, I did a 2-year assignment with Gradle, which is a build assist software company. I disagree that artificial intelligence isn't capable of supplanting the function of court reporters. I think that we can find other uses for them within the system. But for an example, you can have legal research done for you. You just now ask the machine, and it will summarize cases. I mean, it goes far beyond LexisNexis or anything else that's out there. It is really sophisticated to the point that it is capable of distinguishing overlapping sounds, overlapping voices. I mean, they do that in the motion picture and TV industry all the time. They can differentiate in the sound departments between one tonal level and between another, and they can remove one, or they can separate the two. I don't think it's that difficult of a problem if we take a hard look at technology and we get people who are expert enough who can instruct us in exactly how to do it. I know the technology's there. It can be done.
Thank you. And John, would you please address that question as well in terms of the court reporters?
Sure. As Ted and Julie have said, I think that court reporters are a critical part of the courtroom. I've had cases where there has been no court reporter, and I have to say I'm concerned myself, and then somebody says, oh, what did this person say, or what did that person say, and you don't have a transcript that you can immediately turn to and see what they said. Whereas when you have a court reporter there, if somebody missed something, you can ask the court reporter, and the court reporter will read it back to you in real time. And the court reporter can also tell you, which I don't think AI would necessarily tell you, if they misunderstood something, if a word was kind of garbled or misunderstood, the court reporter can say, I didn't get that. Could you repeat it so that I can get it for the transcript? So I think they are absolutely critical. In terms of getting more, I think they need to have job security. I think they need to have better pay. And that's what makes jobs attractive. And if you're not going to give people job security and a pay that's decent for their skill level, then they're not going to come in and fill the roles. So I think we need the resources from the state. We need to make a good career path for the court reporters and try to attract more people to the field and to the office.
Thank you. Candidates, it has come to a time where we're going to now ask you for your closing statements. We had additional questions we would like to get. We appreciate that participation of all of those who've registered this evening to ask these questions. So with that in mind, it would be nice to now hear you each take a few minutes to give us, you'll each get 3 minutes to give us your closing statement. Tell us a little bit more, if you'd like, about your background, why we should be voting for you, and to wrap up, how important this job is for us in Ventura County. So again, thank you for those comments that you've made in answering our questions, and now to your closing comments. And we will do the closing comments starting with John McBride, please. And let me make sure I have you ready. Mr. McBride, go ahead.
Well, as I said, I was born and raised here. I am dedicated to this county. I love this county, and I want to serve the county and give back to it. I feel it's absolutely critical that the judges help to rebuild respect that the courts, I feel, have lost of late. I think we need judges who respect the Constitution and who follow the law, and listen to litigants when they come into the courtroom, listen to them, and fairly consider their evidence, fairly consider the law, and apply the law impartially to give a fair and impartial decision. I'm lucky enough to be endorsed by 5 law enforcement associations that together represent over 150,000 peace officers throughout the state. The Los Angeles Police Protective League endorsed me, as well as Santa Monica Police Officers Association, the California Coalition of Law Enforcement Associations, the San Francisco Police Officers Association, and the Association for Los Angeles Deputy Sheriffs have all endorsed me. In addition, I'm endorsed by business leaders and community leaders, educators, and citizens. And I value every endorsement I've received. 2 endorsements that were particularly dear to me are one that I received from former Commissioner William Redmond, and one that I received from Pastor Howard of the Lighthouse Church here in Ventura. And the reason those 2 endorsements mean so much to me is that I didn't ask either of them for the endorsements. They both reached out to me. Former Commissioner Redmond called me He said he was familiar with all three of us. Mike, he didn't know that you were on the ballot yet when he called me. And he wanted to go out to lunch, and we went out to lunch and talked, and he said, I'd like to give you my endorsement. I'd like to write a statement for you. And he wrote the statement for me. Pastor Howard of the Lighthouse Church, I'm not a member of his congregation, but he's familiar with a case that I handled. And he called me and said, I think people in the county need to know what you've done. And would it be okay with you if I wrote an endorsement letter to the Ventura County Star? And because he knew the case, and I knew that he knew the case, he said, I'll anonymize the letter, and I'll let you take a look at it first to make sure that, you're okay with what I've included. And so I said, that would be great. And so I really value both of those endorsements. As I said, I'm dedicated to this county. I think I have the temperament to be a good judge. I think I have the legal knowledge. I certainly have the ability to research the law if I don't know the answer right off the top of my head. And I hope that people can visit my website, mcbrideforjudge.com, and I hope that I can earn their vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now to Mike Malik, your closing comments.
Well, I'm endorsed by my 5-year-old daughter, and it's for her future and the future of all the children of the county and the state of California that I'd like to be of service again and bring justice to the masses as much as I can and to make improvements to the present system. I think there's deficits that can be fixed. I think there are different approaches that can be taken, and it's not acceptable anymore in this day and age to just assume that we're going to continue doing what we've been doing before. That's not conducive to progress. It's not conducive to justice. And I think I have a long history of helping people. You have to be really patient when you're sitting down listening to a homeless person who you can't understand. You need a translator who is around them to interpret what they're saying. And it takes patience to listen to the people who are struggling, hamstrung by economics, by injustice of one type or another. And I think it's important to recognize the different kinds of justice. There's racial, economic, there's social, there's religious justice too. And that's an important issue that we didn't get a chance to discuss tonight. But I think that the role of religion, when its rights start to interfere with the rights of the rest of the community, I mean, there's an issue there that needs to be addressed as a whole. So I thank you for putting on this event. I thank all those who listen or will see this in the future, and I hope you will consider voting for me.
Thank you. And Edward, your closing comments, please.
Thank you. The first thing I want to do is I want to strongly thank the League of Women Voters for holding this forum. This is incredibly valuable for educating voters in this unusual race, because this is our opportunity as a county to pick a new judge. Every one of these candidates is coming from different backgrounds. None are judges. There's an open seat, and so this is an opportunity to choose. I'm someone who's demonstrated that I can make tough decisions in real time in very serious trials: murder, domestic violence, elder abuse, sexual assault, human trafficking cases. I'm also someone, because of my background in legal research and because of the kind of complex work I do now, who's happy diving into a stack of papers, doing complex research through the Constitution, through statutes, through case law, to find a just result. I'm also committed to access to justice. I cannot emphasize that enough. Our courts need to be more efficient for victims, witnesses, and jurors, and everyone who's using the court. And our courts need to focus on not being an imposing institution on a hill, but instead something that the community feels they can rely on and access when they need it. That's something, to give a deliverable example, that I've been committed to as a senior deputy district attorney in working with kids, teaching them civics, doing mock trials through the Project LEAD program, and also through other work with community organizations like Líderes Campesinas or the Mixteco Indigena Community Organizing Project, where I've had a chance to work with their victim advocates in training. In terms of endorsements, in addition to District Attorney Eric Nazarenko, I'm also endorsed by retired District Attorney Gregory Totten, and retired District Attorney Michael Bradbury, as well as retired Sheriff Jeff Dean. I'm supported broadly across the community. I'm supported by the Ventura County Sheriff's Correctional Officers Association and the California Correctional Peace Officers Association, as well as civic leaders such as Mayor John Zaragoza, Supervisor Matt Levere, Supervisor Vianney Lopez, and others across our community. I encourage you to visit andrewsforjudge.com, which has more information on those. I am someone, we're facing challenges. I am someone who is excited about those challenges. And I promise to make the courts a more welcoming and accessible space to people in Ventura County. My name is Ted Andrews. I'm running for judge. I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And Julia Snyder, you're up for that final closing comment.
I'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum and putting this information out there for the public. I would like to say that although I have great respect for all of the candidates running, there are a few things that distinguish me from the other candidates and set me apart from the field. I am the only candidate who has actual judicial experience and training. I'm the only candidate who is currently sitting on the bench and doing the job. I'm the only candidate who has gone through the judicial trainings. I'm the only candidate who is endorsed by current and retired Ventura County Superior Court judges, is endorsed by local and current law enforcement, including Oxnard Peace Officers Association and the National Latino Peace Officers Association in Ventura County. I have a breadth of experience on the bench, including both criminal and civil cases. I have over 2 decades of trial and courtroom experience. I'm an adjunct professor of evidence at Ventura College of Law. I've been involved in multiple community service events for over 2 decades, including mock trial at the county level and the local community level, Project Lead, We the People, congressional hearings, and Women in History. I'm a lifelong Ventura County resident. I've both lived and worked here. I've raised all 3 of my children here. I'm the only candidate who represents diversity in the field as the only female candidate. I'm a single mother working full-time for 15 years. My judicial philosophy is to be fair, be patient, be kind. Listen more than you speak. Always be ready to learn something. Follow the law, even if you don't want to. Be ready to use your discretion when the law allows. Give people every opportunity to succeed, but hold them accountable, not for failing, but for squandering the opportunities to succeed. Fairness looks different in every single case. It's a balancing act in every case of accountability and mercy. Accountability depends on somebody's capability and mercy depends on effort. They look different every single time. I have the experience to balance those, and I've been doing it for 5 years. So I ask for your vote, Julia Snyder for judge. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, all candidates. We appreciate so much your time, and to our viewers, thank you for viewing this with us. We know we need both qualified candidates and registered voters to make elections work. So we hope that you have already received your ballots. The ballots are in the mail. They were mailed out to voters starting February 5th, and you return those ballots by mail or deliver it to one of the vote centers. We also want to remind you that you can find more information on by reading your Ventura Voter Information Guide, which was also mailed out by the County Elections Office earlier this month. The last day to register, remind you, the last day to register to vote will be February 19th. And if you need to check your voter registration status, it's available to you at voterstatus.gov. vote.sos.ca.gov. This also is important for you to know these candidates are nonpartisan offices, and there is additional nonpartisan candidate information and resources available to you at vote411.org. You can also visit our League of Women Voters website for additional information on the candidate forums that we're continuing to offer. We will have one on coming up yet with the Board of Supervisors on the 13th. We hope you'll join us at that one in person in Oxnard. Again, to all of the candidates, thank you so much for joining us, for being part of our efforts to educate the public on voting. And to all of those viewers, thank you for staying with us for this time, and we encourage you to vote and be part of a very important process for our county. And with that, we bid you good evening. Thank you from the League of Women Voters. Thank you so much.